see her?
Yeah, I can. She's super cute.
She's a kitten. She's a little baby. Say hi. Say hi.
So cute. I have two cats of my own. I love them very much.
You just don't.
So, I just wanted to ask you some questions. I don't want to take up too much of your time. But I know we
You don't
discussed
have
some
to worry about
questions.
taking up too much of my time. Just, relax and just ask me whatever it is you need to ask me.
Okay, perfect. So the first question I have is what made you decide to get into teaching, or what made you choose that career path, or if there's any background to that?
Yeah, so let me go back in time in my head. And okay, so I in college, I was really drawn, of course, to literature, and I did really well in literature classes. I loved writing ever since I was 5 years old. I thought I'm going to be a writer, I love that. And um, so I decided to become an English major. I was the first person in my family to go to college, so nobody really could guide me. So I was just basically guiding myself with the best I could. And I became an English major. My mom said, well, you should have a minor in education because it's sustainable. You'll have some sort of something to fall back on, is what she said. And so I took an education course, a few of them, but one of them I remember taking. Um, I was in the City University of New York. I was in New York City. That's where I lived. And the teacher that we had, she was scary. Let me be honest with you. She was a very scary teacher. She was this tiny little Jewish lady, but she was tough. And she would just rip your head right off. And so we were all scared of her. She came into class and she said, who's Marianne Arini? And I was like, oh my God, I'm in trouble. Like, what did I do? Here I am in college, and I'm scared to death, right? And so I raised my hand and she goes, you, young lady, are going to be a great teacher. And I was like, oh, I'm not in trouble. Yes. But I had forgotten what she said. I had forgotten that she even said that at the time. And then I finished the education courses. I did you should always make sure that the school that you're going to has a internship program. So I did the internship program and I was teaching in a New York City high school. And the teacher that I was working with, she was getting ready to retire. And she told me, do not go into this field. Do not go into this field. And I had such a good time teaching the class, even though it was high school, even though it was the middle of New York City, um, even though it was technically a very tough thing to do, difficult. I had a good time communicating the literature, the ideas, teaching them just to always remember to think for yourself, not to believe everything you hear, critical thinking skills, how important they are, which we really, really need now, with all the fake news and everything. But so I remember just really enjoying that and thinking to myself, like I kind of had a crisis at time I was graduating college. And I said, well, gee, like what the hell do I really want to do? And I said, I went through every single occupation that I was thinking about. I was thinking about being a lawyer. I was thinking about, all these other things that were coming into my head that I thought I might potentially be good at. But then I said to myself, I really want to change the world. And what is the way that I can change the world the best? And I thought what we need most in this world is education. We need, like, if you don't understand, if you're in ignorance and you don't have the skills, the tools, then you're not going to get very far. People are going to take advantage of you. The world isn't going to change because people aren't going to change if we remain in ignorance. And I thought, well, that's a very powerful thing to do is to become an educator, even though nobody would think that it's a powerful thing to do typically, right?
Mhm.
And so I decided that I wanted to try that. So when I graduated, I did get a job, but it was in one of the worst districts you could teach in New York City. So it was 100% African American. And I walk in there, a white young teacher. Um, and they weren't having me. Let's just say that. And so, sorry, she's biting. Um, and I still tried, I tried teaching them some amazing James Baldwin, and Maya Angelou and but we're talking, these were kids who grew up with nothing. Their parents were on crack, cocaine. I mean, you name it, they were on it. They didn't have clothes. They couldn't concentrate on school. So what had happened is one of the kids had hid a gun in the school and they were going to shoot me, is what they told me. So, um, yeah, this is the things that happen in New York City. So what had happened is this kid had come up behind me in class and grabbed my butt. And I had turned around to him and, yelled at him and then got him in trouble. And they suspended him from the school. They didn't expel him. They should have expelled him. They suspended him. So when he came back, he said, I'm going to take you out. And basically, the girls in the class had told me he had hidden a gun in the school. So each day I was walking from the subway to the school and I could have been killed, but I decided, well, actually, my body decided. The stress had gotten to my body so bad that my appendix started to swell. And I was in so much pain. So I didn't wind up teaching there. And from there, after I got better, I went into publishing. And I was in New York City in the publishing industry for about a year, which I learned a lot from. It was amazing. But ultimately, I didn't care for the politics that were in the publishing industry. And then I decided I was going to go back into teaching. So I actually got a great job after that teaching the gifted and talented in New York City, which was just my cup of tea. I was really good at that. These students were so bright. They were just, I mean, they were the equivalent of college students in other areas of the United States. But they were in New York City. The educational system in New York City is so much better than it is in other areas of, the country, that they were so advanced. So they were getting concepts that I can't even teach now, that it's hard to get students to comprehend. So it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. So that's really how I got into it. That's kind of a
Wow,
long
yeah.
story, but I didn't want to make it seem like, oh, boom, things just happen so magically
Right.
and everything works out and Cinderella gets a dress and goes to the ball. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. I remember in middle school, I told one of my teachers that I wanted to be a teacher one day, and he looked at me because he was also an English teacher, and he looked at me and was like, "Don't you ever do that, ever, ever." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, you like your job, right? Right?" But I don't know. Thought that was funny. Kind of had that in common. But and when that happened, when you were teaching, that kind of ties into the second question. When you were teaching, and then the student said that he wanted to kill you. How old were you when that happened? Were you fresh out of college by that point, or were you interning
Yeah,
still?
at that point, I had a master's degree, so I was
Okay.
about 24, 24.
Wow.
I think I was
Okay. Yeah.
24, yeah. 24.
I mean, yeah, I could imagine that that would probably draw me away from teaching for a while too. I'd be scared. That's so scary. That is so scary. Wow. So that was in a high school teaching experience, right? Like you taught high school
Right.
at that time.
And
So
then the
what?
middle school was laughed about. Middle school
Okay,
was
so you've taught middle school, high
high
school, and
school. I
college.
substitute taught elementary school. Never went into elementary school. I wasn't interested in elementary school.
Okay.
They came, I have to be intellectually stimulated. And then college was later.
Okay.
And I came, yeah.
What was grad school like for you?
Yeah, so
How
grad
was that?
school, well, I mean, the master's degree that I got, that was a piece of cake. Master's degrees are very easy. It's 30 credits. I knocked that out in a year and a half, and then you write a thesis, which is really nothing compared to a dissertation, you know. That was fun. Then to go for the PhD, which I absolutely don't recommend, and I will tell you why. It's not because it's difficult. It's not because you have to pay a lot of money for it, although that is part of it. It's because it doesn't pay you back. You don't make money on the investment at all.
I was gonna
Uh,
ask you that if you felt like there was like the payback, if you got paid back for that, or but I didn't want to pry. But that's actually a good
no,
question.
no,
Like
yeah,
you,
yeah, of course. You should ask the questions.
yeah.
Everybody should ask the questions. Yeah. So that's why I just thought, well, I'm just going to be honest and tell you guys the truth. So what had happened was I decided I wanted to move to Arizona because I wanted nature. So I moved to
Hmm.
Arizona and I started teaching for a different middle school in Arizona, and it was in a very bad section of Phoenix. And so while I was teaching there, it was depressing just to see what these kids were going through. And I won't get into it, but it's horrific. Um, and so after a year of that, I'm like, I just can't, I can't, I'm way too sensitive to be
Right.
able to witness that all day long. And I did the best I could, and I was there, and I was their, their refuge. They used to come to my room, and it was like a getaway. Uh, and I took a lot of them into my house, actually. I mean, I had some that would come stay at my house because they didn't have decent families, and so I did what I could, but basically I had to go into something else. And I decided that I wanted to go back and get a PhD. Um, and I had a great professor while I was an undergrad that I just resonated with. When I had her as an undergrad, I didn't have that much of a chance to get to know her, but there was just something about her that I resonated with, and I wanted her kind of as a mentor. So she had told me about a particular school that she thought I would do really well in, and she was also doing a part-time gig at that school. And she's like, well, if you went and you studied and did what you wanted to do in this graduate school, you would be able to, work with me and we'd be able to do the kind of deep research that you wanted. And I really did want to do, I had a specific subject area that I wanted to do deep research into. It was interdisciplinary. It wasn't just English. And I wanted to do a great deal of research in writing. So I did that for 5 years. It took me 5 years. And I enjoyed the process. It was one of the best experiences of my life. For me personally, but that's my personality type, you know. Other people, they were dropping out left and right, and they thought it was torture. But you have to know yourself, what's
Hmm.
torture to you. Some people run, marathons and triathlons, and it's torture to the rest of us, but
Yeah.
it's fun for them, right?
Hmm.
So anything that's fun with my brain is fun for me. Um, so the actual experience of that was challenging but good. I enjoyed it, but then it never really pays back. And what happens is if you don't get a position right away, um, you are considered overqualified for any other job. Or if you change your mind and you decide, you know what, like I'm just not digging teaching college, like you have this tremendous degree and everyone is going to see you as overqualified for any other job. So you are stuck. You're stuck in just one position. So unless you know you have a job lined up, you're in it and they want you to get a PhD, then that's the green light to go ahead and do it. But don't do it beforehand. That's my recommendation as
See,
far as
that's
that.
actually interesting because I feel like a lot of people talk about underqualification, and that's such a big scare now, especially among college students here and in my class. It's like, am I going to be able to get a good job with just a bachelor's degree? Should I pursue graduate school, get a master's or a PhD? And it's we always think about the underqualification, but never the overqualification. So that's actually really good insight to that. That's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
Never even thought about that. I genuinely never thought about that. Um,
I wouldn't really worry about the underqualification because what you really want coming out of school is to get into something, just try out something. You need an entry level position. Everybody starts with entry level. And when you're in that entry level position, anything that they suggest you do, any courses to take, any this and that, just do it. Just just be a yes man for like the first 2, 3 years. You'll learn tons and you'll just start to see how to operate and how to move up the totem pole. So you're in a really great position, believe it or not, at an entry level position. And then if you need to get a master's at that point, they might even pay for it for you, you know? So
awesome.
don't worry
That's
about that.
mm, so the next question, let me see. I have my glasses on. Um, what was your career path like from beginning to now?
Beginning to now. I think I answered some of that.
Mhm.
She's running around like crazy. But so, like I explained, I was tutoring students. I was tutoring English as a second language the whole time I was in college. And that was really fun. English as a second language, I really do recommend if you are going to become an English major to get that certification because it just gives you a lot of versatility. So I did that for a while. And then, like I told you, I did the high school, the middle school. I taught high school again for another year. I did the middle school for about 3 years. And then college starting 2003. I've been teaching college ever since 2003.
That's the year I was born. Oh, wow.
Well,
That's
that just shows I've got some experience there.
hmm Wow. Yeah, so 22 years then you've been teaching college level.
Yep.
Wow.
Mhm. Yes,
And
I have.
do you enjoy teaching the college level? I really enjoyed your class when I had your class, like genuinely. I really did. I'm not just saying that. I really, really did. And I was even telling my mom, I was like, I'm so excited to be talking to my teacher again. But do you enjoy teaching the students as much as they enjoy teaching your class? Is my question.
I do, especially on like in person versus online is a totally different thing. I like online. I mean, I'm able to help students a lot online, but at the same time, I feel like I'm able to do a lot more in person and get a sense of people's energy, get a sense of like where they're going, what they need.
Hmm.
Um, you can pick up the vibe of the entire class much easier. You can tweak things much easier because you can see what's happening. Just talking, looking into a student's eyes, you can pick up so much with their body language and things they may not be telling you. So you're able just to help them transform faster. And transformation has always been my motivation for teaching is watching people transform, watching students come in with little confidence and leaving with much more confidence, watching them have fun learning versus learning being like a root canal, going to the dentist. Because there are classes like that. It's like, oh my God, please. You know what I mean? Like you
Hmm.
want it to be fun. You want them to have some chance to explore who they are, what they love, talk about the things that they love, research, learn a little bit more, all of that. So that part, the creativity of it is fun. The personalities that you meet, they're fun. Watching people change and grow, that's tremendously fun. You know?
Sorry, I was having
I'm
some
not sure if I
connection.
answered your question. Right,
What'd you say?
you're taking up the camera. She's taking
Sorry.
up the camera.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I lost my train of thought. I was gonna tell you something. Jeez.
We're talking about
Well,
classes and teaching class.
yes. When I took your class, I loved it because I kind of had a similar feeling where I really liked English as a child. I always resonated with writing and things like that, and I kind of stopped after high school. And your class was the first English class I took when I was fresh out of high school. So when I took your class and I started receiving feedback and my grades back, I was like, it kind of reopened my confidence in writing again. And I didn't come in with the confidence, but I left with the confidence. And
Mhm.
then I was thinking back once I started university, and I was like, I've had so many amazing experiences with my teachers who have taught me English and so many great experiences with the feedback I received. Why shouldn't I continue like chasing after that feeling of like what brings me joy and like the just the things that I love. So then I came back and I actually wrote a paper recently and I mentioned you in the paper, but I didn't say your name, but I did mention you in the paper and how happy I was to finally feel like reconnected back to a passion of mine. So I included something about your class in the paper, and it's funny because everything comes full circle every time. But yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Mhm.
I love
Um,
hearing about the confidence, you know?
yeah, I really did gain a lot more confidence after your class because even from the beginning of the class till the end of the class, I remember looking at like my papers from when I first started the class and to the end, and I was like, wow, this is like actually insane progress that I didn't even realize was happening until you actually look at it again. And sometimes I still go back to look and I'm like, oh my gosh, how much I've written over time now. Everything changes so rapidly and you don't even notice it changing. So
That's so
it's
exciting though. Like that gives me goosebumps. Like I love that.
yeah,
That you can
that's why
transform that quickly.
yeah, I go back and look all the time just to realize like if I'm feeling like upset about something and I'm like, how many papers can a girl write in 1 year or whatever? But I'm like, it's all for a reason because it looks so good. Like it feels so much better. Anyways, after my tangent, what are the major responsibilities of your position?
So the major responsibilities of, do you want to know just college professor or you want to know any teaching job? I mean,
Um,
they are similar. I can make it general. I mean, what you want to do is you want to create content. So you want to create a curriculum within the guidelines that are handed to you. They always have guidelines, you know. So you have to look at the guidelines and be able to say, okay, how can I teach these objectives and these, what do they call learning outcomes? How can I teach these learning outcomes in a way that isn't going to bore the living hell out of the students, and it's going to make them feel like this is great to be learning it. So there's a lot of creativity there in putting it together. So, and then you have to figure out the assessments. How are you going to assess whether or not the student is growing and learning and changing? Are you going to just give them exams or are you going to give them papers? What are you looking for inside those papers? How are you going to show them how they're being evaluated? So you want to make up some very good rubrics that break down the content of, as far as points go, because unfortunately, everything's evaluated with grades. It's
mhm.
not like, yes, you did a great job, you pass. It's more like, every little thing has a grade to it, and so they've got so many different levels. Um, so you have to look at the assessments, you have to look at whether or not the objectives are being met for what the college or the institution or the different middle school, high school, what they want for that particular grade level, that particular class. What are you required to teach as far as the literature goes, if at all? What within the textbook needs to be learned, and then you have to just take all that and put it together in a way that maps out an entire semester, number one. So you have to break it down into digestible chunks that are going to go throughout the semester. And you have to gauge, like when you're just starting out, you have to gauge, are they picking up what I'm putting down at the beginning? Do I need to take this and move it into the next week? Do I need to cut and make this less? Do I need to add a little bit more? And you just have to be constantly in tune with what's happening to then be able to flesh out over time how to, give them, spoon out the information in a way that's not overwhelming, where they can learn things and then take what they're learning and then practice it the next week, and then maybe practice a little bit more, something else they're learning the next week. So there's these fine skills that you begin to learn that I can't even really articulate to you. It just becomes part of who you are and what you can observe by just watching a student as a whole, student singular, and then students as a whole in the class. And over time, you begin to perfect it. Like if you're not changing and growing and perfecting and constantly, fine tuning your classes, you're not doing your job. And there are some teachers who will just not do a damn thing,
Hmm.
but you have to constantly be perfecting if you really are paying attention and making it an art, because it's an art. There's a lot of creativity there. So there's so much that you're doing as far as that goes. Then there's also the whole psychological component to it that, people don't even think about. A lot of instructors don't think about. You could tell those types. But if you are tuned into the psychology behind all of this, you're dealing with humans who are at a certain stage of their life where they are absorbing and growing and changing and coming into who they are supposed to be, who they are, born, some things we were born with, and then who they're evolving into. So you have to honor that. And how do you honor that? You have to figure that out. Each person that's in front of you, you have to respect them. Respect, where they're coming from, what they're thinking, what they're feeling in that moment. You can't disregard people's feelings. You have to be in tune with people's feelings. So there's a whole putting on your psychologist cap as well. If you're going to try to affect as much change as possible over a certain short period of time that you're going to have them in your class. So there's being that psychologist. Sometimes you have to listen to problems, and maybe not offer solutions, but be a listening ear. Um, and that's quite a lot, actually, of being a teacher, believe it or not, especially these days where there's so much anxiety and depression and mental illness, it becomes a big part of the job. And if you can't handle that as a person, you're not going to want to go into the profession at all. So that's a big aspect. Then there's dealing with the bureaucracy and um, the administration.
Hmm.
And that can be very challenging depending on what the school is that you're in, the state that you're in, what's happening with education right now is a catastrophe. And so there's a lot of things that affect your job depending on what level you're at, junior high, high, which state you're in, which school you're in. There's so many different things to pay attention to. Um, so there's having to jump through those hoops that they give you to jump through, and all while not getting great deal of pay, to be honest with you.
Hmm.
So, um, so it's a labor of love. I have to be
Yeah.
truthful. It's a labor of love. Like if you don't love people and love watching them transform and making learning a happy thing for them, then don't do it, because you're not going to be
Yeah.
paid well for it anyway.
My mom was telling me that because I was originally wanting to be an elementary school teacher at Coconino Community College. That's what I started off doing. And I remember taking the education courses and sitting there and thinking a lot of similar things like, not only do you have to be a teacher, but you have to be sometimes a parent and a guide and a home for these children that don't have homes beyond this, or that can't go home and lay in a bed and enjoy a hot meal at home. So it becomes even more than just a teacher. You're like a parent, a sibling, a guide, everything on top of that. And I like what you said about you're never done perfecting the teaching craft, because once you hit the point where it's come to the end of the school year or the semester, and then you're like, I'm finally understanding my students and they're understanding me. And then it's like you have to say goodbye. And then you move on to the next set of students. And then you have to start all over again, relearn new personalities and new goals. And I'm sure it's also bittersweet too, though, because you're seeing them move on, but you're also growing an attachment yet. So then you're like, now I have an attachment to my students, and then you have to see them go. It's just a lot of things you have to consider. And she was
Yeah.
like, but I also have
Uh-huh.
a question. So when you were teaching younger students, how was it like dealing with the parents? Like, did you ever have to do parent-teacher conference? How
I
was that?
did. Yeah, I
Okay.
did. So I didn't have a lot of the problems back then that teachers have now because of the
Okay.
helicopter parenting and um, that their children are never wrong. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
there's not a lot of discipline going on either. So when I was teaching, it was mostly immigrants that I was teaching at the time because I was in an immigrant neighborhood in New York City. So people from other countries value education and they respect their teachers highly. So
Hmm.
when those parents came in, they sat there with their kids, and their kids were quiet and afraid because if I said anything bad to their parents, they would be in trouble. And that
Hmm.
doesn't happen anymore. The kids don't get
Mm-mm.
in trouble. So I didn't have half the nightmares that I hear about that go on these days, regarding parents, that parents are the biggest problem, that teachers have
Yeah.
because they don't allow them to do their job, you know?
Hmm. That's
So
exactly what my mother told me too. She was like, I am not afraid of the children. I'm not afraid of the administration. I'm afraid for you and the parents because parents nowadays cannot admit when their children are wrong. Simple as
exactly.
that. I mean, when I was a kid, it was similar. Like my mom did not play about me. Like I was expected to go to school and be respectful and come home and be respectful, but now it's become a different, whether that be good or bad, I guess we'll see how that goes with those
Yeah.
children and their families, with all due
Mhm.
respect. Um, let's see. So, what skills would you say are important for an individual in your field?
Well, I mean, of course, computer skills, because technology is everything. Even in the teaching field, you have to be able to learn technology quickly. New apps that come out, new programs that are put into the school. Um, so if you're a technophobe in any way, shape, or form, you better get over that kind of a thing. So of course technology, um, but there are a lot of soft skills like flexibility that are extremely important. You cannot have a strict plan that's set in stone in your mind when you're teaching. You have to be able to change your plan on the fly. If it is not working, I'm going to throw this right out the window. And like if a lesson it wasn't working at the very beginning, I was like, all right, I'm gonna wing this now because I know that's not working. So let's see what's gonna work. So that flexibility with people, with scenarios, with schools, it's very important. If you're high strung, you won't do well. So that I know is definite. Having compassion and empathy and love is extremely important. If you don't have those things, if you're getting into education, maybe some people get into higher education as an ego trip, just to hear themselves speak. That's not going to go over very well either. So you need to have that compassion and love. You have to have great organizational skills to be able to organize a class. You have to be a great leader. You have to be able to walk in and be humble yet, firm to direct people. There's a lot of different skills that are needed. If you're like just not organized and discombobulated, students are going to become aggravated with you quickly,
Mhm.
you know. Those are the major ones that come to my mind that you won't succeed without.
Yeah, we looked at this presentation that one of the career people at the school with like the future careers, they help you navigate that. They came to speak to our class and they gave us a list of things that employers value with their employees and then a list of the things that they're getting. And I would say like 10, 20 years ago, it was like they're valuing technology. And now they're not wanting people with a high level of technology or savviness with technology because everyone is now tech savvy, but now they're saying that we're lacking in communication skills because now everyone's too tech savvy. So it's like hard to find a balance, especially, but during COVID, the technology thing was huge. That was like you either sink or swim with the technology, you have to figure it out. So Wow. Um, so what are the pros and cons of teaching junior high, high school, and college? I know you discussed some of them already, but if you can point out a few pros and cons and be as brutally honest as you'd like. This is a judgment-free zone. It's a safe
Okay,
space.
I will tell you the truth. Um, I discussed quite a few as far as administration goes, as far as parents can go, as far as um, yeah, there are many pros like that I've talked about regarding dealing with students, and I would say 99% of students are amazing to deal with, in my opinion. You know, if you're treating them well, they're going to treat you well back. There are that 1% that there's something not quite right with them. You know, I don't know if it's some sort of severe mental illness or something where they will make problems. But they are so small. The percentage is so small. Um, so you will have to know how to handle it when it does happen. Now, if you're at the middle school level, you're going to have disciplinary problems, and the same thing with high school. And class control is another issue. You know, if one student goes out of control and the rest of them follow, you just lose your control completely. So you have to have methods to hold everything in control. And if you can't control a class, you cannot teach, period. So that is one of the biggest concerns for middle school and high school teachers. And administration sometimes will help back them and sometimes not. One of the things that I did to have control over the class was it, I never you can't ever let them see you sweat, number one. You can't ever lose your temper, no matter how, like you can't take anything personally because you have to realize everyone has their own problems. You're coming in, you have a class of sometimes 40 people, 40 kids, and you can't take what they're saying personally. They're each having their own days. Things happened before they came to school that upset them. Their hormones are going nuts, all kinds of things. So you have to never take it personally. And it becomes like almost like a spiritual practice where you have to stay calm. And if you can stay calm and treat people with respect and create different incentives for them. So what I did was on the middle school level, I created a commendation system, that's what I called it. And if someone was kind to another person by like lending them something or saying something nice to them, and I heard it and I saw it, if they answered a question and they answered it really articulately, they had a creative idea, anything that as was positive, I would give them a commendation. And once those commendations built up to 10, whatever, they can use them as points to make their grade higher. They can, pass a test that they might not have, and I had control over the class because when I asked a question, like I can't even tell you, all the hands shut up. It's like ooh, 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 ooh,
Mhm.
because they were competing against each other for who was the smartest, who was going to get the best, who was going to have the most commendations. And then my responses to the students had to be oh yeah, that was amazing, oh yeah, high five, you know what I mean? You have to, it's like this whole big day in, day out, you have to be on to keep that reputation and that vibe going in your classroom so that you can have that control. And if you spiral out and start yelling, you just ruined it. You ruined that communication, that whole relationship you had going. You lost your respect, you lost your cool. So that's how I handled that. Now, another con I have to speak to you about is the pay. The pay is miserable and it hasn't gotten any better. I don't imagine it's going to get any better. And
Yeah.
if a person is going to become a teacher, there's certain states to stay away from and certain states to teach in. So um, the New York City school system, you will start out with not such great pay, but by the time you are retired, you will have excellent pay. And not only that, they have a union. So they will make sure that you're protected. So people can't sue you, can't go after you. Like you pay your union dues, but you have excellent benefits, amazing benefits. In Arizona, it's the opposite is true. I mean, you have no rights, there's no union. The benefits are and like you will have Arizona State retirement if you can stick it out long enough, but the pay is not great. You're not going to end on really great pay. You're going to pretty much, I have to be honest, struggle. If unless you have a rich husband, you will have to struggle. Um, so there are some downsides. Education is not respected in this country. That does not mean, however, that it's not respected in other countries and you couldn't go teach over there because they love English teachers in other countries, you know?
Hmm.
You can go to Japan and all of the students will stand when you come into the room and bow to you, and you'll have great benefits and there'll be a lot of respect. But that doesn't happen in the United States. So that's just a reality. Mm, I have to talk to you about another con, and that's burnout.
Hmm.
You can get burned out on not so much the people, because I don't get burned out on the people, but for me, you can get burned out on the repetition of things sometimes. Things can become very repetitive. The grading is very repetitive. And you have to gauge whether or not you're the person who likes repetition or a person who dislikes repetition. Um, and am I a person who likes to do the same thing over and over again, or am I a person who doesn't like it? You know? So like I have to tell you quite honestly, at this stage, I am transferring over to, I'm not going to be an English teacher anymore. Like I'm in the process of becoming an entrepreneur. I've taken the money that I
Congratulations.
have. I have taken the money that I do have. I started Airbnb. I have an eBay business. I also took real estate classes and I'm starting another kind of business. Like I've realized that I'm good at doing multiple things at the same time. Like I can have my hand in four different things
Mm.
and it stimulates my brain. And so I enjoy that. So I am still going to teach, but I want to teach yoga and I want to teach more spiritual concepts.
That's
So, on
awesome.
YouTube. So that's like where I'm going now. So I'm in that process and now I'm starting to make money that I never made before as a teacher. So, you know, not that I did well, I didn't do well. I mean, I did, believe it or not, well enough compared to others because I was very smart with what I did with the little bit that I had. But if you're not smart with money and you have a bunch of children that you have to take care of that they suck money. I chose not to have any children. I knew I wasn't going to have the money to take care of them. So that's another thing. If you want to have children, you want to have a large family, you may want to consider a different occupation unless you have a husband that's going to be in the picture,
Hmm.
kind of a thing. I have to be honest with you, you
Yes, be
know.
honest. Be as honest as possible. Because also it's interesting. So, because we talk about in our class like the different branches of the career field, how you don't stick to one thing your entire life. So I think it's great that you're also talking about what you're doing now and what you're trying to transfer over kind of to doing with your yoga and your eBay business and things like that, because it's part of life. Like this is things that people want to hear, I think, that you don't need to, if you are feeling stuck, you don't have to be stuck. You can move
Don't
on to other things. Yeah.
No, because you gained all of these skills. No matter what you choose to do right now, you're going to walk away with major skills that you learned. Like, I mean, I can teach anything at this point. I
Hmm.
can work with any kind of person and get along with them. I have great organizational skills. I can put together online courses with my eyes closed. You know what I mean? I can create curriculum, bam, boom. My brain can work so fast and put it together. So, I mean, there's so many things I can do at this stage that you know, I'd rather just work for myself
Hmm.
because administration and schools and our country, like we're just not valued. And most people, there's like a burnout rate of 5 years for teachers, especially particularly on like the middle school and high school level. they'll be burnt out. It's kind of like a compassion fatigue that happens with also with caregivers, nurses, doctors. A lot of them burn out because of the amount that's required of you. So it's true of teachers as well. And had I had to have stayed in the public school system, I probably would have burnt faster, I think, you know. But being at the college level, you didn't have the classroom management to deal with. It was far easier. Didn't take as much of my energy out and zap my batteries, you know. Like I'm really
Hmm.
primarily an introvert that can be an extrovert.
Hmm.
So I'm zapped by people constantly talking to me and needing things from me. And then I need to go and relax and recharge my batteries. So if people
Hmm.
are extroverts, it's much easier to be a teacher, you know, than it is for someone who's an introvert, who's more introspective, who, you know, likes to spend time. I like to spend time processing ideas and writing and doing creative things and in silence sometimes. So it really takes knowing yourself. So I would truthfully, if I was talking to my younger self right now, I would say, find out what your Myers-Briggs is, Marianne. I would tell her also um, to do human design, look up human design and look up the gene keys. And it begins to tell you what your personality type is really like deep down inside. I learned so much at this stage of my life from gene keys and human design. That's what gave me the confidence to just be like, I'm going to go my own way now.
Hmm.
So if I had those skills as a young person, if I knew that about myself as a young person, I would have, sky's the limit. I would have blown through the stratosphere, you know? So
It's almost like the saying, sorry for interrupting you. It's almost like that saying where people are like, you have to love yourself before you can love anyone else.
yeah,
Or you have to know yourself before you can know anyone else. And it's like,
it's
yeah,
so
because you
true.
having to get to know so many children and not, and it's different. I feel like the difference for me between college level teaching and then elementary, middle, high school level teaching is there's a difference between the people that want to be there and then children don't get to choose to be there or not. So even if you're having a bad day, you can't just not show up. In college, you have free will. You signed up for the class. Like you're paying to be there. Your money's going into the class, and it's you give yourself that obligation. For children, they don't have that to pull from. So
Mhm.
sometimes they're like, I don't want to be here, and I'm here just because I have to be, and I don't need my parents getting truancy letters in the mail saying that they have to go to court if I miss school. So it's yeah, it's that's a whole nother. But you're right. I never even considered I need to retake that Myers-Briggs test. I need to retake that. It's been a long time.
Do the extended one. There's a short one, and then there's the extended one. Do the longer one with a lot more questions.
It's
Yeah.
so funny you mentioned that because I was literally talking to my boyfriend about it in the car the other day. I was like, "You've never taken that test?" And like English, because one of my English teachers actually made me take it in high school, like the shorter version. I was like, "You've never
Uh-huh.
taken the Myers-Briggs test? Like, what are you talking about?" So I'm gonna take it when I get home today.
Tell me what you are. I want to know.
Yeah, I'll send you an email back. I'll be like, "Hey, just letting you know." Let's see here for our last two questions. Is there anything that you would do differently if you were starting out again? Maybe tell yourself to take the Myers-Briggs test, but is there anything else?
To take Myers-Briggs and the other two things, the gene keys and the human design. I would, to be honest with you, I just followed my bliss.
Mhm.
And you were talking about your happiness and the things that made you happy. All I did was follow my bliss and I found my way through. And I think that college students think that there's going to be this really cut and dry path to walk, you know, where you graduate college and then you get this job and it's going to be, you know, the perfect thing, or this and that, and you're going to get married and have 2.5 kids, and you know, and they've got this idealized idea of how it works. It doesn't work that way. Like, we're human. and we're living life on planet Earth, and bad things happen and good things happen, and and sometimes the path wavers, and you might go through the bushes and and the woods, and then you're getting scraped by a bunch of you know rose thorns, and that it's like all, and then the sun comes out and it's beautiful and the birds are tweeting and I learned every step of the way. Every step of the way was part of my journey. My journey made me me. And everybody's journey, if they are okay with the bad times and they allow themselves to cry and be upset and just be in it, and then enjoy the good with the good, and constantly move towards what's making them happy, even if it's small little bits and steps, you're going to get to where you want to be, but you have to enjoy each day and enjoy the process. Like, it's not about some lofty goal, it's about enjoying now, this moment. And so, yes and no, would I tell myself things? Sometimes it's really good to just live it. Sometimes you're just going to learn. I can say a bunch of things to have myself avoid, but I don't think I would have done anything different. I was a very headstrong person, like the teacher told me, don't go into education. I still did it, you
Mm.
know, and it still took me down a path. And I still, I mean, I don't know if you ever watched these near-death experiences where people who have passed on and then they bring them back, like the stories that they tell.
Hmm.
There's tons of books about them, there's stories.
Hmm.
And the only thing that seems to matter from these stories of these people who they were, died and then came back, that the doctors brought them back, is that they did good things. Like, they helped people. Like, that was the only thing that really mattered. And if that's all that really matters, like, you can do anything as long as you're helping people and being a good human being. Like,
Hmm.
just spread some love, spread some joy. Like, what does it matter? Like, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Hmm. One thing I always tell my friend, she would like one time she told me, she's like, I wish we did this in high school. And I was like, do you though? Because I think that it doesn't have to be that serious sometimes. Like we lived life the way that we were supposed to live our lives. And now we're here and we're going to graduate college. And if you keep thinking about like what I would do if I was this age again, well, sometimes you can't, there's nothing you can do now. You can't go back and tell her. So if you keep looking back on what you could have done or what you should have done, you're going to spend all your time there and not enough time here. And that's something that I'm trying to deal with too. And I'm only 22 years old, but I still get those feelings of like, I wish I did this, or maybe I should have done this, or but is it even worth it? Because we're all human beings, like you said, on this little rock. Like I'm just here for one time, as far as we know, one time. So I'd hate to live my life thinking in the past when I could be sitting here in the future doing things like this and talking to you because oh, I wish I could see my teacher again. And here we are. Like it'll happen if you really want it to happen.
It's true, and any questions that you have, like over the course of your life, you can always email me and ask me. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can always stay in touch with me and I'll just tell you the truth. You know what I mean? So it doesn't have to be all these years that pass and then you want to do an interview. If you want to
Mhm.
ask me anything at any point, just shoot me a text. I'll give you my phone number. Like,
Awesome. That'd be great. I'd really appreciate that.
yeah. Because if you're trying to navigate, it's great to have somebody who's already done it, who's been through the ropes. And I'm not
Yeah,
going
I
to
don't
say what
have,
to do, but I'll just give you advice,
yeah.
either way.
Yeah, I don't have any family that's pursued anything in English. I know, I don't know where I want to go, what I'm trying to do. I feel like I get stressed out about that, but I try to think to myself like there's no, like you said, there's no one set single cookie cutter way that everyone goes through life. So it's easy to get overwhelmed, but I'm grateful that I have people like you and mentors, good mentors, and but you were the first person that I thought of when I had to do this assignment. I was like, I know who I'm going to contact, and had to like find you on the CCC website because I was like, wait, I hope she's still there. I hope so, and you were there, and I was like, yes.
You caught me
But
just in the nick of
I
time.
know, and now you said that, I was like, oh my God, thank God I was able to. Because imagine if your email got like lost in the abyss, and I'm like looking for you, and I couldn't find you. I would have been heartbroken. But yeah, wow. So are you leaving CCC then?
Eventually, like, I mean, I'm not sure if I'll be there next semester. I may or may not, but they might be my very last. Do you know what
Oh,
I
your
mean?
last
Although
hurrah, yeah.
they give me a great deal of freedom and it's fun. There's just so many new things that I know I'm going to be doing, that I
Hmm.
need my time to do, building my own courses, doing my own things. There's so much you can do now with technology on your own.
Yeah,
So building my own following, all of that.
that's
So
amazing. So are you gonna do the yoga online like instruction then?
that's going to be part of it. It's going to definitely be a big piece of it. I'm really into like mind, body, and spirit, like keeping everything healthy. It's if we don't keep our bodies healthy, if we don't pay attention to those things, to those little things in our bodies and put good things in our bodies, like we will age quickly. Uh, I'm really careful about what I eat and just taking care of it and exercise and taking care of my spirit. There's so many things, many practices, Eastern practices that really take care of the spirit. Um, and we don't think about that in the United States in that way. People look at yoga as a way just like to relax or to get in shape in some way. And there's so much more to it, that people don't know and they don't talk about. It's a spiritual practice. It changes you as a
Hmm.
person, changes you. So I really want to talk about that, you
That's
know.
amazing. I mean, it's working because you look beautiful. You look amazing. Like
Thank you, honey.
you do look amazing. Your skin is like perfectly glowing. You look amazing.
Healthy food.
Yeah. And this is a question for you, but how do you get your hair so beautiful and long is one of the questions I've been meaning to ask you since I had your class. What's your hair secret? That is that's my
It's hair
question to you.
vitamins. It's actually
Really?
really literally, if you go on Amazon and you put in hair vitamins, look for Cottage hair vitamins because I actually, for years, I did research on hair and hair growth because I just love hair. It's one of my things. And I found researched every single component that creates beautiful hair. So I had all these jars and bottles of different kinds of supplements. Then I stumbled across Cottage and I looked at their bottle and I'm like, wait a second. They have everything that I have researched in one supplement.
I gotta write this down.
Somebody else did this research. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I should be like they should be giving me some of the profits because I tell people this all the time. So it's Cottage hair vitamins on Amazon. It's not expensive, like $22, and it gives you everything you need. And then it just
Hair
starts to
looks,
grow like a weed.
you have like the most beautiful hair I've ever seen in my life. So
But your nails grow too at the same time.
yeah,
Your
I need
ears
that too.
also grow, your skin, looks better. It just
I
feeds.
also need that because I've been to the dermatologist recently. I need that because
No,
I've
your
been,
skin looks beautiful, girl.
thank you.
That
I've been working on it again. I had like this crisis, the stress crisis, and then I was like, my skin started breaking out and it was terrible. I had to go to the dermatologist. It was just horrible. But yeah, I'm gonna look into that because I would do crazy things to have my hair look like yours. So I will message you in like 2 years and let you know if my hair has grown, but I will also message you about my Myers-Briggs test.
Okay. The first thing that you'll notice about the hair vitamins is that the amount of hair that comes out when you're in the shower and when you're brushing it will go down tremendously. You'll barely lose any hair, and then you'll just start to notice over like 6 months the volume.
Wow, okay. Because I honestly, I don't know what happened to my hair. I feel like it's not thinning. I usually don't even lose a lot of hair in the shower, but I feel like something has been off to where it's not growing as fast, or maybe it's like what I'm eating or something. I don't know. But I'm also going to tell my sister about that because she's had two babies and she gets like hair loss in the front of her hairline here. So I'm going to tell her about that too.
Yeah, good idea.
Well, I really appreciate you talking to me, and it was amazing seeing you again. after
It
a
was
while.
amazing to see you too.
And I hope that we can keep in touch. And I hope that everything goes well for you and your new career endeavors. And yeah, I was just really excited to speak to you again. And your sweet cat on the side there, I see her.
You too.
So cute. Literally so cute.
So I will email you now my phone number so you can just text me any questions in the future.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for talking to me, and I'll keep in touch.
Yes, of course. All right.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Bye,
Bye-bye.
sweetheart. Bye, Victoria.
Bye.
What are you doing, Mom?